अंश पर कन्नजनी कंस पर धूमलिच्छ वंश पर शेर शिवराज है।
जय भवानी, जय भवानी, जय शिवाजी, जय शिवाजी, जय भवानी, जय भवानी, जय शिवाजी.
Namaste and good evening to this special show on Hindu Samrajya Divas. Many of you must be wondering why this was a trend today. And what if some king of a small kingdom got coronated 347 years ago? Why should we celebrate it as, Hindu Samrajya Divas or Hindu Empire Day? Was Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj coronation just one ceremony? Was it limited to just Maharashtra or small part of Maharashtra? What was that ceremony all about? And what was the impact of this coronation, the symbolism that was used, and the message that has given, not just to the prevalent foreign forces and enemies, but also to the common people of India, that inspired them to realize the dream of Swaraj. Not just when Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was alive, but even almost 2.5 years after his death. To discuss all these issues and much more, we have with us author Anish, who has worked a lot on battles of the Maratha Empire. Anish ji has also written a story on Brahmaputra, the story of Lachit Barphukan, his bestseller book, contributed many articles on history, especially focusing on Maratha history, to many popular magazines and newspapers. Many lit faced, he has come as a panelist and spoken about Maratha and Assamese history. In educational institutions also, he has been speaking on this, many of the neglected parts of our history. And as it has been happening with many of us, he has also creatively used the online platforms to educate people about the unsung and unknown history of India. Now, he's also professionally busy with his profession as the Merchant Navy officer. But his passion for history, his passion for the way Marathas and Assamese history, even their naval expeditions, it's a fascinating way to look at this neglected journey. So I will start the discussion with Anish ji, and we will hope when on YouTube many more viewers will come up with their comments and questions, and we will be able to address them in coming days. So Anish, how do you see the events that led to the coronation ceremony? What was the prevailing situation, and why Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj must have thought that this coronation should take place and certain message should be given through this particular ceremony?
Yes, Before I come to the question, I would like to thank yourself, Mr. Ketkar, and organizer for inviting me for this talk. It's a very reputed and old publication, so it's a matter of honor for me to be associated with the organizer. And you yourself are a very senior journalist. So again, I hope this association, this talk, does reach a huge number of people. Once again, thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. So coming to the question as to why Chhatrapati Shivaji coronation is important, is the topic. And today we mark it as Hindu Samrajya Divas. Like with all other events of Chhatrapati Shivaji's life, there is one date that is the Julian or Gregorian date, which we call the English date, and there is of course the Hindu date, as for the Hindu calendar. So all of these events, the coronation ceremony, his birthday, his day of passing away, these do not fall on the same day in the uh, English calendar that we use on a daily basis. The As per the date, the coronation took place on the 6th of June, 5th or 6th of June, and as per the Hindu calendar, it is on Jyeshta Shukla Trayodasi, which falls today. Uh, any which day you want to celebrate is okay with me, as far as I'm concerned. In fact, I would say celebrate both days because they're essentially the same event being talked of in two different calendars. If you employ a third calendar like the Hijri or something, you might come up with a third date. But essentially, it's the same event that's being talked about. To understand the importance of Chhatrapati Shivaji's coronation, we need to go back 2-3 centuries to what the situation was like in Maharashtra and in India for that amount of time. So in 1296, Alauddin Khilji invaded the kingdom of Devgiri. Now, Devgiri was in Maharashtra. It ruled over western Maharashtra, what we today call, western Maharashtra and Marathwada region, with their capital at Devgiri, which is in today's Aurangabad. Due to various reasons, that invasion could not be stopped. The kingdom fell, and about 20 years later, all traces of the kingdom completely vanished. From around that time, and then of course, Alauddin Khilji proceeded further. He went all the way into South India, ransacked many temples, etc., and established the sway of his own sway all over South India. From that point on, from around 1300, in fact 1316, that kingdom was totally wiped off the face of this earth. And from 1316 onwards, till the advent of Chhatrapati Shivaji, we do not find a Hindu kingdom in Maharashtra. And as per the Hindu kingdoms in North India, they had already vanished by the time Khilji came south. A large part of the destruction was already complete by the beginning of the 13th century. We have Prithviraj Chauhan in 1192 being defeated at the Battle of Tarai. Then various other Hindu kings get defeated over the next one decade, including Jaichand. And by 1206, 1205, you have the invaders already reaching up to Bengal on one side. So from the 14th century, North India and Maharashtra is under the rule of invaders, and a huge time period passes that no native ruler, Hindu ruler, comes up from anywhere, least of all in Maharashtra. There is some resistance in Orissa, etc., but particularly in Maharashtra, from the time of the Devgiri kings have fallen, there is nothing till the advent of Chhatrapati Shivaji. Now Shivaji Maharaj manages to establish his own kingdom. I will not go into detail into his own life history because it becomes a very big topic. Just summarize that Chhatrapati Shivaji established his own Swarajya, starting from the district of Pune. Eventually, it spread and encompassed a large part. At the time of his coronation, it stretched from somewhere in Nashik, from the Salher region in Nashik, all the way south of Kolhapur. And on the one side, we have the coastline with the Konkan. This region of Hindu rule is very important because You need to have two more events in contrast to this. One was there was an attempt at the second battle of Panipat, where Raja Hemchandra Vikramaditya was killed. This was an attempt to re-establish Hindu rule in Delhi, which had actually been done. Hemchandra went and crowned himself the Vikramaditya in Delhi with a complete coronation ceremony, but he was killed few days later at Panipat. About 50-60 years prior to the birth of Chhatrapati Shivaji, we had a battle uh, of Talikota, which took place between the Vijayanagar kingdom and the Deccan Sultanates. And in this, the last South Indian Hindu kingdom were wiped out.
That is Vijayanagar.
Is Vijayanagar. Yes, to be more accurate and correct, you can say that the Vijayanagar kingdom survived in remnants in the deep south near Kanyakumari, but for all practical purposes, it did not achieve the glory that it had during the days of Sri Krishna Dev Raya.
Absolutely.
Yes. So this is the kind of history that preceded Chhatrapati Shivaji. In Maharashtra, the kingdom was completely wiped out. In North India, there was one attempt which got finished in a couple of months. In South India, an attempt was there. It flourished, but it finally got demolished under the Deccan Sultanates. So Chhatrapati Shivaji literally was an exception to the norm in the 17th century. When he managed to control such a large area of land by fighting various battles against Adil Shah of Bijapur, against the Mughals, against the Siddhi, all kinds of enemies was fighting. We have various battles, Pratapgarh, Salher, and the visit to Agra. Anyhow, he establishes this kingdom. Now, the coronation is important to give legitimacy to this rule, to establish him as an independent Hindu ruler that is separate from the rule that is being practiced in the day, that is of Adil Shah to the south and of the Mughals to the north. This legitimacy comes from the Hindu Dharma Shastras. Just like today, you have the Prime Minister of the country whose legitimacy flows from the Constitution of India. It is the Constitution which gives him certain rights and privileges, and there is a certain respect due to him because of those rights and privileges. It's all because of a legitimacy granted by the Constitution of India. Similarly, this legitimacy was to be given to Chhatrapati Shivaji, and it had to come through Dharma Shastras. Now, since there had been nobody who had been coronated in so many years, the first task was to find a proper coronation ceremony. Now, Chhatrapati Shivaji's coronation ceremony was of the Indravi type, in that he became a representative of the Indra and Vishnu Devtas. You have to understand society at the time. Now, Chhatrapati Shivaji was Kshatriya. Now, Kshatriya only could become a Raja, that is obvious. But the problem was that a normal Kshatriya could not decide laws for one Brahmins who were supposedly above in caste him, and he could not decide laws and punishments for Kshatriyas who were his equals. This was a problem with Chhatrapati Shivaji also, which is why the legitimacy through the Hindu Dharma Shastras becomes important, in that it granted him the elevation, it granted him a status equal to the gods. I think we'll come in more detail about ceremony later on, but this is what it did. Is that it granted him.
Anish, if I'm not wrong, there were some voices even that were taking objection to his Kshatriya status on the one hand. On the other hand, if we see the historical background as you were explaining, there were many Hindu Jagirs or small representative chieftains who were taking sort of pride in working for either Adil Shahi or Qutub Shahi or even for that matter Nizam Shahi. Now in this context, Shivaji Maharaj thinking about Hindavi Swaraj and then seeking legitimacy, that becomes all the more important, isn't it?
Yes. So the Hindavi Swaraj was established is that he has established his kingdom, but now it needs to have the legitimacy so that he can establish his own kingdom, he can start giving laws. Now, at the time that he is coronated, the laws were all based on the Sharia. or the Hadiths, because in the courts of Adil Shah and Aurangzeb, there was a rank called the Mutasibs. These Mutasibs would interpret the law, explain it to the emperor, and that is how the law giving used to happen. This had to be replaced. Now, Chhatrapati Shivaji could not continue the system because the Chhatrapati was of the Hindavi Swaraj. Now, how to implement these laws? So, this is how the rank of Pandit Rao came in, where the rank of the Nyadhish came in, and the law started to be given according to the Hindu Dharma Shastras. This coronation ceremony becomes important because it is totally different from the other courts of the country. So one is that the legitimacy is important. Why it was necessary to do a ceremony after having conquered so much? One is that it required the legitimacy of the Dharma Shastras, because establishing a separate rule that is different from what is currently going on. Secondly, this from the legitimacy, and because he was Chhatrapati, he could now give out laws according to Hindu Dharma Shastras. He could now appoint the Nyadhish, he could now appoint a Pandit Rao, and in fact, he appointed a Ashtapradhan Mandal, which is mentioned in the Shukraniti, which is about, 2000, 3000 years old.
At least we can safely say pre-Kautilya, because Kautilya refers to Shukraniti in his Arthashastra.
Yes. So the Shukraniti is a base text from which the Ashtrapadhan flows, which is why also Krishnadev Rai had Ashtadiggaj in his court. Only one change is there. I think Pandit Rao's rank doesn't exist because the whole question of reconverting people to Hinduism did not arise back then. So that is only case, I believe, where it differs a bit from the Shukraniti, but otherwise, the Shukraniti clearly says that the 8 pillars of the state are these: Prime Minister, Finance Minister, Security.
Anish, I will come to this, actual model of governance and the symbolism that he has used to establish this sovereignty and legitimacy for the larger people. But I would also like to understand the kind of events that led to this ceremony. Where does Gaga Bhatt come into picture? Because there are many theories that he is the one actually who suggested that such ceremony should take place. Many believe that no, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj actually sent him a message and got him from Varanasi, Kashi, because he was in service to Kashi Vishwanath temple. Then there is one theory that his original place was in Paitan. He was already traveling there, and he is the one who came up with this idea. What does your research suggest?
Yes. So again, come back to the first thing is that why was the coronation necessary? To establish himself as a Chhatrapati and as a lawgiver for everybody in the land. And this could be done only by elevating his status to that of Indra. So this is something that I believe Chhatrapati Shivaji himself also knew, and it is a very logical way of looking at things, because anybody will claim to be the king tomorrow, but who is going to be giving the legitimacy to claim that? So one thing is that it is quite possible Chhatrapati Shivaji and everyone basically knew that this is what is to be done, because nobody had seen a king past 300 years. And so now that ceremony became important all of a sudden after a very long period of time, that we have to have a Indri coronation ceremony where you got an actual Abhishekta Raja. And if you read the entire coronation ceremony, you find that there is a proper Panchamrut Snan given to Chhatrapati Shivaji at the time of his coronation. Exactly same as what the Panchamrut Snan you would give to your gods at your house. Now coming to Gaga Bhatt. So Gaga Bhatt's family, right from the time of his grandfather, were already in Varanasi. And Gaga Bhatt's grandfather, if I remember the name correctly, Narayan Bhatta, was instrumental in the sanctifying of the original Kashi Vishwanath temple, which Aurangzeb subsequently demolished. In fact, one of his treatises written at the time in the 16th century, I think is still current for the pilgrimage to be carried out to Varanasi, Prayag, and Gaya.
Oh.
His grandson was Gaga Bhatta. Yes, they were originally of Python, and there had been one case where uh, Gaga Bhatta had actually come to Maharashtra to settle some kind of religious political dispute with the Shenvi caste in Konkan. It's an unrelated issue in the 1660s. So he was already known to Chhatrapati Shivaji prior to the coronation ceremony. And he was also one of the most learned Brahmins. The charge that he was a non-Maharashtrian is totally wrong because he was from Python. And maybe one or two generations had been living in Banaras for the past maybe 80, 90 years or so. But they were Dakhani Brahmins, or to be more precise, Maharashtrian Brahmins. And then he was asked to preside over the coronation ceremony. One reason being, now what happened was that in Maharashtra, one line of thought had started to form that the entire, Kshatriya caste had vanished. And only Brahmans and Shudras exist in this world. But this was a South Indian line of thinking. It was not prevalent in North India. Because, and Gaga Bhatta did put this point very forcefully forward to prove that there is every right for Chhatrapati Shivaji to be coronated, because this whole concept of there being no Kshatriya caste is wrong. Because first of all, Sri Ram and Sri Krishna were both Kshatriyas, Vishnu Avatar. And in North India, this entire concept doesn't exist. They are having their Kshatriya caste for a very long time. So if they have not disappeared in North India, why should they disappear in South India? With these kind of arguments, he was fit for the coronation ceremony. Of course, he knew the entire procedure for this coronation, and which is why he was called.
No, I see other angle into this because getting somebody from Kashi, because Kashi Yatra, whether you are in north and south, was equally important. So getting somebody like Gaga Bhatta from Kashi was, much more sanctimonious and having legitimacy beyond his kingdom. So the place of Kashi and the message of that coronation, both purpose were served through this one action.
Yes, definitely, because everybody, the highest place of learning was Kashi. So this also served. But to say that Gaga Bhatta was of Varanasi is wrong, because he was of Python originally. He had finished his education and upbringing was in Varanasi. So it served both ways, that you have somebody from a very prestigious place like Banaras coming for this coronation ceremony, and at the same time he is not an outsider.
So now, when actual ceremony, what does our historical record says? How the ceremony was conducted? What was the response of the people? How did people receive it? The participation and the quote that we see in the picture that is popularly seen, that not just from the other kings, but even the European representatives were present in the court. So, what are the historical records say about this?
So the entire coronation ceremony can be found in a single work called Sri Gaga Bhatta Krut Shivrajyabhishek Prayog. It's a work in Sanskrit with its English translation available by V.S. Bendre. And it gives the entire ceremony on a day-to-day basis. I think it's the entire 5 or 6 day long ceremony. Each of those ceremonies, small, big, everything is mentioned in very minute detail. So if anyone interested, you can please go through it. So essentially, that ceremony was about the coronation of Chhatrapati Shivaji according to the Vedic rites, Hindu rituals. There happened a second ceremony, few days later, according to tantric rituals, but we stick to the first primary Vedic ritual ceremony. The whole point was, of course, to elevate Chhatrapati Shivaji to a status of a god. And which is why the ceremony involves an Abhishek of the Raja. The Raja Abhishek is actually doing an Abhishek of the Raja. It's like you do an Abhishek of gods, murtis, with milk, water, everything. Similarly, an Abhishek, Panchamrut Abhishek was carried out of Chhatrapati Shivaji. We had an example where the waters of the rivers were brought together and used in the coronation ceremony. This kind of cultural unity also is seen in India.
Again from all parts of India.
Again, from all parts of India, you find that the holy river water have been brought together, and this shows again cultural unity. This is, if you go back in history, you'll find that this mention is made even for the coronation of Sri Ram at Ayodhya, where you find the waters of the various holy rivers has been brought together for the coronation. So every little aspect connects the coronation ceremony to a very hoary past, very long way past in Hinduism. You find the Ashtabadhan, you go all the way back to Shukraniti. You find this coronation ceremony taking place, the river water being used, you can find a reference in the Ramayana, and so on and so forth. The throne, the asnad, is supposed to be made of the which Umratazar, the umber tree, and this is supposed to be the throne of Indra that Chhatrapati Shivaji is sitting on. There is a procedure for how Chhatrapati Shivaji sits on the throne also. In that he is representative of Indra. And Indra, as you know, is the king of the gods.
That was the popular idea also about king, the representative of God or element of God.
Yes.
That was
he was
also
carrying. He carried a Vishnu Murti also during the ceremony. And as you all know, the main anointation happened early in the morning at sunrise, which is also according to Hindu scriptures. So the entire ceremony, we find that it is all according to the Hindu scriptures, all harkening back to a very long past era, and which actually shows not only the knowledge that had been preserved through all these times, but even after all these kings had vanished, we still had the knowledge preserved somehow for this coronation ceremony. But that Chhatrapati Shivaji took it upon himself to get it done and having himself coronated and make himself the Chhatrapati of this entire land, rather than taking the easy way out and doing a coronation according to what was being done all over the country otherwise, and just be another Raja, but become Chhatrapati. This coronation was necessary and it was carried out all according to the Hindu scriptures.
So it also shows the vision he had about this ceremony. It was not just meant to be the ruler of small land or just limited to some parts of Maharashtra. This pan-India vision was always there, which we see in terms of impact. In fact, one of his letters that I referred to some time back to one of his close relatives who is serving in the Portuguese force in Goa, where he is saying that, Ase to Himachal, this land is ours, and we have to have, the rule in the interest of people. So the idea and the vision was very clear. Otherwise, there was no need to go up to the Ganga and get the water. He could have, confined himself to Maharashtra rivers in Maharashtra. But now coming to the model of governance, you have already spoken about the Ashtapradhan Mandal. But besides that, he established his own coinage. He had his own stamp, the mudra. What was so significant about this symbolism, and how it helped in creating a new model of governance?
Yes. So the symbolism was very, very important. Chhatrapati Shivaji had an excellent idea as to what really were the markers of sovereignty. So what marks a kingdom as a sovereign state, as independent from what is prevalent all around. For example, you have the Indian flag, you have the Indian emblem, you have
Mm-hmm.
various other markers which show India as an independent country, but at the same time a united country.
Mm-hmm.
That the Indian flag is powerful enough to be representative of all the Indians, at the same time powerful enough that nobody else can raise a flag in the
Mm-hmm.
entire country.
Mm.
Similarly, Chhatrapati Shivaji's uh, kingdom, Hindu Swarajya, had these markers of sovereignty. One, of course, Bhagwa Dhwaj, that was the flag. When you spoke about the seed, which was in Sanskrit.
Mm.
Uh, then you have the coins, which are
Mm.
again having Devanagari Lipi. That is, Shiva Chhatrapati is clearly written on those coins.
Mm-hmm.
Something more important, maybe say equally important, was the establishment of the Bazar Pet on Raigad. Now,
Mm.
why is the Bazar Pet important? In those times, prices were fixed by
Mm.
the ruler. The whole idea of market deciding prices, everything is all modern concept, came with the
Mm.
British. In those days, in the medieval ages, the ruler, whether it was Adil Shah of Bijapur or Aurangzeb at Agra and Delhi, he would decide the price of every item. There are not too many things to purchase anyhow, but whatever was there, rice,
Mm.
dal, sugar, the prices would be decided by the ruler, and nobody else could go and challenge those prices
Mm.
once they had been decided. A small vestige of this exists today in the minimum support price rule. But that is what the ruler's power was, that he could, if he decided that the 1 kg of rice is going to be 100 rupees, well, then that is going to be 100 rupees. And the
Mm.
local factors may come into play, but this is what is going to be sold at in peaceful times.
Mm.
Which is why Chhatrapati Shivaji's Bazar Pet, which established prices for his kingdom, becomes important. It becomes a mark of sovereignty, that he could decide the economics of that country.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
it is also a symbol sort of whom does he represent, because till then
yes,
most of the representatives either of Adil Shah or Qutub Shah, they were mere tax collectors. They were not rulers,
yes,
though they were claiming
no,
to be or behaving like rulers. They were actually just collecting taxes, and they were absolutely as per their whims and fancies. Though some rates were decided by the the Islamic small kingdoms. Now the irony was these kingdoms, small kingdoms, were also a sort of tax collectors for Delhi Sultanate, and
hmm,
they had further delegated this power of tax collection to certain jagirdars. Now that has completely changed, and I believe that that was an important message. But if this was just one ceremony and this symbolism was used, how actually it's, what was its impact on the people? How could this one step, because of course this was not just one step, because Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had actually cultivated this idea of Hindavi Swaraj through various means and connecting with the people. But my last query for you is, how did it inspire Indian population, not just limited to Maharashtra, because you see Shivaji as an inspiration, definitely up to Tanjavur, and even in the present parts of Kerala, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj became very important symbol of inspiration. Some people, whether Scindias and Holkars and up to Panipat, we see the entire rule in the name of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. And again, that inspiration is of Hindavi Swaraj. So that was never a parochial understanding of a kingdom in one corner of India. It was always about pan India. How did this happen? And that's why I'm asking you again and again, what was the response of the people? How did it rouse the confidence, the self-belief, the idea of selfhood, nationhood in the minds of the people?
So the event was extremely important because it proved that an independent kingdom, according to the Hindu rights, which were ruled according to the Hindu rules, uh, could be established. This was thought to be an impossibility because it has not been done for such a long time. It was thought to be impossible that such a kingdom can actually rise. And when it did, it inspired a host of people, a lot of people to fight for it, to continue fighting for it, even after Chhatrapati Shivaji had passed away. And Shivaji Maharaj continued to be an inspiration for many generations. Uh, Inspiration to two ways. One was geographical in his own times, and other was historical over a long period of time. We find Nana Sahib Peshwa, whose Punyatithi also falls today. Nana Sahib Peshwa also had written that we are the students of Chhatrapati Shivaji, आम्ही महाराजांचे शिष्य. It is one of his own letters. He writes this. We find that the place of his coronation, where the coronation ceremony took place on Raigad, it was in a well-kept condition, celebrated, decorated all throughout the 17th and 18th centuries till the time the British came and took over the fort. Up to that time, that coronation, the place where the coronation took place, was kept in a very, very good condition by all the future rulers because they all drew inspiration from Chhatrapati Shivaji. Then, of course, geographically find that during his own time he inspired Chhatrasal Bundela, not in Chhatrasal Bundela, but also all the way east in Assam and Kuch Bihar. There were communication between those kings that Chhatrapati Shivaji has opened a campaign against the Mughals. We should also do the same way. This is what is happening in his own era and day as inspiration. Plus, we find that right up to the end of the 18th century, start of the 19th century, the Shivrajyabhishek Shak, that is a regnal era, which is another marker of sovereignty, by the way. The regnal era that was started by Chhatrapati Shivaji is in regular usage on nearly every letter. Many letters are found where Chhatrapati Shivaji's regnal era, that is Shivrajyabhishek, year being taken as year 0, is being used on various letters. So this is how that event really inspired, because people continue to keep using that same calendar. We are today using Shalivahan Shak. It takes us way back all the way to Shalivahan. So why do we keep using Shalivahan? Because we want to keep that memory alive of Shalivahan, who achieved many great things 2000 years ago. Same way, the Shivrajyabhishek Shak was also in usage in Maharashtra for a considerable time. If you can say so. Geographically, yes. As I mentioned, during his own time, he became an inspiration for disparate kingdoms, for kingdoms far away. He became a great inspiration for the Indian freedom struggle in the 20th century. As you mentioned, yes, Kerala. Then also in Tamil Nadu, some of the revolutionaries had their inspiration in Chhatrapati Shivaji. In Bengal, the amount of inspiration of Chhatrapati Shivaji is so much that it's second only, if not equal to Maharashtra. We find Rabindranath Tagore, Aurobindo Ghosh, Pranendra Kumar Ghosh, each one of them have taken inspiration from Chhatrapati Shivaji. Go to Punjab, Lala Lajpat Rai was one of the first people to write a biography of Chhatrapati Shivaji in an Indian language other than the Marathi and Sanskrit. We have authors we have somebody like Kavi Bhushan, who is contemporary of Chhatrapati Shivaji from Uttar Pradesh, from a place near Kanpur. And the kind of poetry that he has written for Chhatrapati Shivaji is still unmatched.
Absolutely. And he was from the Mughal court. He was from the Mughal court, and then came all the way. So that shows the string of patriotism that was still working despite the foreign rule. fantastic. So this clearly shows that idea of Swaraj, that concept of Swa, the concept of self-rule, uh, that idea of being one nation, and it should be ruled by our own people. Foreign invasion should be discarded, it should be fought against, and on our principles, on our ancestry, on our cultural pride, a new kind of nationhood should be established, or rather re-established. And that was one seed perhaps that was sown by this one coronation ceremony. And that is why I believe after 347 years, it is still necessary to celebrate this as an idea that continue to inspire us to celebrate our independence, our sovereignty, and the fundamental principles that guided Indian nationhood for centuries together, not just few hundreds, centuries together. And that is the edifice of our civilizational nation, the cultural identity called Bharat. I hope this will further instigate much more
Yes. Does
curiosity
it add
among the
something?
viewers. Yeah, please.
Yes, yes, yes. So obviously, the coronation ceremony then becomes a root of everything else that then flourishes. If there is no
Mhm.
Chhatrapati Shivaji and his coronation, then there is no Mughal Maratha war that follows after it. There is perhaps no Pesha Bajirao who
Mhm.
comes after this war. There is no um Indians or Marathas reaching all the way to Ladakh, and
Mhm.
Raghuji Bhosle managing to reach Cuttack. So the entire uh, Hindavi Swaraj, the entire Hindu empire, which spreads across the length and breadth of India in the 18th century, could not have happened without the establishment of this seed called Hindavi Swaraj by Chhatrapati Shivaji in 1674.
Absolutely. And that is why perhaps even a person like Justice Ranade also writes about rise and fall of Maratha power, and British actually took over the reins from Marathas and not from Mughals. I think this has been a fascinating discussion, Anish, and there will be many more questions coming from the audience, and perhaps we will have to continue this discussion on history lessons in coming days. But we will think about it in a different fashion. But this is one important day, one important ceremony that continue to inspire us for our Swaraj, idea of Hindavi Swaraj, that became a symbol for freedom struggle. And even today, that's why we should celebrate it as the idea of our nationhood. Thank you, Anish ji, for coming over and sparing your time for
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
discussing this with organizer audience. I'm sure we will trouble you again, and you will come again to give your insights on some of the important historical events that happened in India. Thanks a lot, and
Absolutely.
hope to
Thank you.
see you
Thanks a lot.
again. Thank you.
Absolutely.